Hello, welcome, and thank you for watching tonight's edition of Dancer from the Dance Festival of Irish Choreography. Tonight we were specializing in screen dance, so it was a different program from the last two nights, and the choreographers come once again from all over Ireland and also the US. I'm particularly happy tonight that two of our choreographers are from Belfast, Ryan O'Neill and Eileen McClory. And also in the festival, we are working with three dance artists from Limerick, Rachel Shiel, Toby Omoteso, and Isabella Oberlander. And now, because of our connection with Limerick and our partnership with Dance Limerick, I would like to introduce a message from our partners in the festival, Dance Limerick, from the director of Dance Limerick, Jenny Traynor. Thank you, Jenny.
Hello, my name is Jenny Traynor. I am the director of Dance Limerick and feel very proud and privileged that Dance Limerick can be a part of this very special festival. Last night, as I sat on my couch, I became enraptured and captivated with the diversity of rich, fresh and personal perspectives very generously shared with us by all of the artists. Tonight, I'm looking forward to experiencing more. But I just want to give an extra big shout out to Rachel, Toby and Isabella as members of the Dance Limerick family. Thank you to John and all at Dancer from the Dance Festival for giving us this very special opportunity to connect and to experience dance together in all its forms of Irishness. To all of tonight's artists and audiences, break legs and keep well. Goodbye.
Thank you, Jenny. And now we're going to go to the Talkback. So tonight's Talkback is hosted by a very dear friend of mine. In fact, the entire history, I think I explained in one of the other nights, of the genesis of Dancer from the Dance Festival was Irish Modern Dancer who we were performing at the 92nd Street Y in New York. And the curator, Catherine Tharin, was very curious about Irish dance. And I was telling her about the different choreographers working and what they're doing. And Catherine said, why don't you make a festival of Irish choreography? That was in 2017. And we continued discussion online and in person whenever I was in New York. And we partnered with Irish Arts Centre in New York and with Dance Ireland and Project Arts Centre in Dublin. And the first festival happened in New York last April and in Dublin in Project in July. And it's all thanks to Catherine Tharin. Catherine Tharin is an independent curator, choreographer, teacher, and dancer. Catherine was the dance and performance curator for 15 years at 92nd Street Y in New York City until February 2019. And then she recently showed her dances that she made herself very, very beautiful choreography in Mexico City. As a dancer, Catherine was a dancer with the great Erick Hawkins Dance Company for 8 years. And Catherine is now curating a women's voting rights dance platform on the Battery Dance Festival in New York to be broadcast in August. And Catherine sends the message, stay strong with love. And with that, I'd like to introduce Catherine Tharin from New York. Catherine, welcome.
Thank you so much, John. What a lovely introduction. It's always been my pleasure to work with you and of course with the Irish Arts Centre and all of your compatriots in Ireland. You're wonderful. Thank you.
You're wonderful. You gave us such a great welcome. And this year we've grown to 32 Irish choreographers from all over the place. And it all started with your comment in a conversation, and here we go. So so it's very exciting. So now it's over to you, Catherine, to go through the talkback and introduce the choreographers. And we're delighted you're joining us from New York. I hope the weather is good there. I know you've been going through a lot there, like we are with the lockdown, with the pandemic and various other things. And we're all, I think through our dance and through our work, we're all reaching for the stars and coming out of the the difficult day-to-day reality.
Oh, yes. A lot could be said about that.
And I think, yeah.
No, go ahead.
It's wonderful the way the dancers, a lot of the dancers were made in this current situation and created in spite of or because of the circumstances we're in. And I am continuously all week looking at the different works. I'm blown away by the vision and the determination of the dancers. And it's the most physical of art forms. It's possibly dangerous for us to work on top of each other in the studio like we're used to right now, breathing on each other. But we are finding new ways.
That we are. So I'd be very happy now to speak about the work that was just shown. I think that, in fact, certainly in the United States, we're going to go to a virtual platform now for many months to come. And I'm sure we're going to hone our skills and find new things. I think that a virtual platform really is a leveler rather, because we can show many works that we otherwise would not be able to due to funding and travel, etc. So this could be an exciting addition. We're going to think of it that way because dancers are very resilient. Okay, so may I please introduce Rory?
Hi, Catherine and everyone.
Oh, hi.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
A pleasure to see you. Now, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Rory O'Donovan. I'm a choreographer and artist based on Ullán Cléire, Cape Clear Island, the Gaeltacht south off the southwest coast of Ireland. Yeah, that's me. That's some things I can say. I'm also in between shows right now. I'm performing an online piece, a one-on-one piece. So I'm really happy that the times aligned and I have a half an hour break and I can be here for this conversation. So thanks to John and you and the team and everyone for the invitation.
So in New York City with John, we produced an Irish identity platform. And I know that you too are very interested in your identity as an Irish man. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping you can talk just a little bit about that before we look at your work and discuss your work.
Yeah, I guess I've had a big departure in my work about 3 or 4 years ago, where I moved from making work mainly in and through the English language to making work in and through the Irish language, or making dual language pieces. So that's been a big departure in my work and change of direction. And yeah, this invitation to make a film for the festival was an interesting one as well. I had been away working in Vienna when lockdown happened. So I actually got stranded a bit in the city, and I've been in the city away from home on the island. My movement research over the past couple of years has been working with animals, mainly horses, on the island. So I would have loved to have made or shared something regarding that movement research and work I've been doing, but I was in the city, so I looked to what was closest to me, and that at the time was family. So the piece is really an attempt at a conversation with my brother, who's a paramedic, a frontline worker. So it kind of comes out of that, trying to deal, I guess, with Irish identity, to go back to your question about our relationship to grief and mourning. And this kind of moment that we're in. Brisha, the name of the piece, it means break or pause. So stillness became the kind of choreographic gesture that I was interested in.
Well, in light of the no sound, of course, there are other artists who have explored their works without sound, notably John Cage and Paul Taylor, for instance, in the 1950s. I don't know if there's been many who have concentrated on a work without sound, but in fact, it is a way to reflect on our situation and on mourning. So I understand that the dance or the work was to have been narrated by your brother. And
Yeah. We had a conversation. We recorded a conversation that we had about his work and his experience treating patients, COVID-19 patients, and also just his experience as a person, as well as a paramedic over the past couple of weeks. The objective for the conversation was to have an explicit conversation about death. And we managed it, but just as I was submitting the video to John, David, my brother, called me to say that he actually felt he wasn't comfortable with the conversation being made public because of, I guess, cultural things that are going on about our relationship and our comfort with discussing matters like this. So it was an interesting challenge for me then as the artist to understand how the video, the image material meets the absence of that conversation which had been intended. So the silence was a kind of gift actually that was given afterwards, which I'm really happy with actually in the end, because I think it's a moment just to mark the kind of unspeakable that's been going on.
well, in fact, the work does seem to chart a life in a way. You know, it starts out in the morning and goes through the day, and then the lights are on at night. It feels very, it does feel mournful. Can you speak about how the pace is speeded up, the pigeons and the whoosh of the car, and how that, and what you're expressing through those moments of movement?
I suppose the capture, how it's produced, it's a series of still images that are captured with the gesture of the clicker. So there's multiple clicks going on, and then it's edited together to give the effect of like a time lapse. So it's a really commonly used trick, I guess, in film. It's not my medium, so I was learning as I went. And it was it was an interesting experience. It was a reflection. It's of the Mercy Hospital in Cork, which is one of the main COVID-19 hospitals where people are treated. And just talking with David and my brother, and also just talking with other people, the experience of not being able to visit and about being kept outside and kept at a distance. And this kind of idea of like the window, that's the window like people are visiting through, and that's kind of the interface. I guess this is also a window that we're on right now, using to communicate with each other. So yeah, there's kind of many little kind of gestural moments in it that became kind of huge for me. But what I hope the piece does is it offers the viewer something that I've been thinking about, is that we miss this kind of cellular mirror cell conversation that goes on between the dancing body and the spectator. So I wanted to create something that gave space for a physical experience for the viewer, rather than solely for the performer or the dancer in the case of a film, which, you know, I don't know exact research, but I'm not sure if we have the same mirror cell response when we're watching screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you know, in our modern life, we rush around, and now during COVID, most of us have a little bit of time, and your work gave us even more time just to sit with ourselves and sit with the expression of life and death in front of us. So thank you. I think it's a very powerful gesture.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you, Rory.
Slán. Bye.
Bye. So Toby.
Hello, Catherine.
Hello, Toby.
How are you?
I'm good. So I was rather thrilled to see that you studied at Broadway Dance Theater for some time, and
Yes.
learned hip hop. Studied
Yeah,
hip hop.
exactly. Hip hop with hip hop and breaking, to be specific, with a big girl called Efrat.
Yeah,
You
she's
know
a
her?
good friend. Oh yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, Efrat. And she took us around the journeys of hip hop and things like that, and we met fantastic people. Learned about the culture, the history, and yeah, it was it was amazing.
Good. So you've absorbed a number of cultures, it seems. You've taken in the American
Yes,
and the Irish, because you're
yes.
Irish, and of course Nigerian. And I'm curious about this this mixing of identities. We're looking at identities, and
Mm.
that all churns up inside of you. And then what I mean, do you feel one part more strongly than another? Do you express one part more strongly, and how do you do this?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty interesting because it's been it's been a goal of mine to actually embody. I'm almost like a Frankenstein of cultures.
Hardly
So
a Frankenstein.
yeah, so because it's just the pieces of things that have been impactful to me in my life, and to try embody this in my everyday dealings with people, with either young, old, animals, and hip hop is is a culture which came from the States, and I'm very much influenced with the Shinos and the Irish culture, and then also my Nigerian Afro beats, Fela Kuti, and all of that embodiment as well. So so you can see that in everything I do organically, and I don't have to um, like shove it down anybody's throat or try show. It's just it's become infused in who I am as a human being.
Well, we dance who we are, don't we?
Yeah, exactly.
So this work that you showed us today, you were breakdancing
Yes, correct.
in nature, and
Yes.
so breakdance is usually, I mean, as far as I know, usually seen in cities, around concrete. And here you are in a natural environment. And I'm wondering if that influenced your movement, your expression at all.
Yeah, because I come from the Yoruba clan, and Abeokuta, which is known as the Lands of Rock. And from this clan, we are very much embedded in nature. Um, so from a very young age, I was always in nature, and if so it's something that came innately to me, and I do still to today. I still train outside sometimes, even when it's raining. um, I would train or rehearse outside, and it just comes naturally to me because it makes me almost at one. Not to sound so superficial or whatever, but it actually just I just feel then I don't have to use my intellect. I can just let that go, and something else takes its that space. I don't know what that is, but it feels good. It feels right, and in this piece, my partner knows that area very well, which is Killarney National Park, one of the most beautiful park in Ireland. And yeah, and the moment we saw it, or the moment I saw it, I felt something, and I said yes, and there's some scenes, especially when I was coming out from the water. It's almost like a biblical reference of actually being baptized and dead to the new. I mean, dead to the old, and you're coming in to the new world. And even when I was dancing, and yes, my movement was so restricted, and it's that restriction that you feel when you are afraid, or in a fearful situation, where yeah, you are almost suffocating in fear. So and I was genuinely fearful, because there was rocks, there was there was a lot of things in the way that I have to navigate and make sure that I don't injure myself or fall off the edge or anything like that. So and I wanted it so. I wanted it so because it was so natural and organic, that yeah. And again, it just came from within.
Well, indeed, you are an authentic artist.
Thank you.
I have to say, it's hard not to smile when you smile. I mean, the work is very enlivening.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying, I was getting I got that from my daughter, the energy and the smile, because she's always smiling and always just so much energy as well.
Well, very fortunate to have you and her in our world.
Yeah. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Toby.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Again.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Isabel.
Hi, Catherine. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So, so your dance, it's very mysterious. You become part of the landscape, and you obliterate yourself, but you emerge as well. You're washed by the clouds or fire, unclear. You contain your frontal space, but then you open up to the rest of the space. And I found that going in and out, very visceral. Now I'm wondering how you connect this with identity, because you do speak about embracing advocacy and looking at your identity. So maybe you could speak about how that is expressed.
I suppose the starting point for the live piece for Glisten, it kind of came out of about a year and a half ago, when I realized that a certain song keep coming back to me, which is actually from 1984 from Falco, Junge Römer, which is very much highlighting at the time creatures of the night. So anything that is flamboyant, queer and stuff. And it was probably one of the first positive iterations of queerness and otherness as seen on a regular television. So that was kind of the initial thing where it came from. But then I'm very much into my theory as well. So looking at feminist provocations around xenofeminism, looking at how we deal with the world as queer bodies, but and how we can expand upon that. So we are not so one of my questions is like, how can we expand the way we are thinking? Because very much we are stuck in kind of like a binary mode, and not just in terms of gender being with it, but also in terms of the way we are occupying the world, the way we govern and build structures, and also the structures we are occupying. So coming from that, it was kind of like personal, but then also expanding from that to kind of find a way, or find multiple entry points, and finding a way to kind of like dissolve, but maybe occupy those hierarchies we're governed by, and then shed the ones we don't need anymore to find a way to transform ourselves, myself, and the people around me, to have a conversation of how can we imagine a realm where the future is a multitude, where there is a lot of speculation and speculative fabulation, what Donna Haraway says, about imagining what is possible, because it's the thing is like, if you can't imagine something to change, how can it come into being? And, so yeah.
And how do you imagine that future? Or how do you imagine that future, and then how do you imagine expressing that future?
At the moment, the work is still in progress, so the end part is not completely clear yet. But for me personally, I see it as a way where we can recognize each other's differences and acknowledge them. So there is a multitude. It's not one vision. It's a multitude of what is possible next to each other that then brings us forward, because everybody's perspective of how they live and how they perceive the world is unique to them. So it's the kind of like, it's an attempt or an inquiry of practice to see how we can shift that. And obviously I'm starting from my personal perspective, but it's a kind of like an invitation to ask that question.
And this work is a live work.
Yeah.
As well
so
as
it's like a digital excerpt of, like, let's say the first half, together with Martina Cleary, who is my videographer in this. Basically, it came out of a conversation after one of the initial sharings I had in Dance Limerick. And we were just having a conversation around environments and what one can do on a digital basis. So it was kind of very, very nice to then have John's invitation to make this kind of little seed that came out of a conversation actually happen.
Well, I found the work, you're a fabulous mover. So I found, your movement and the movement of the clouds or fire or whatever that natural.
It's all of it.
What is it?
It's all of it. It's the sea, it's glaciers, it's a glacier. It's also, it's part of like a Icelandic kind of glacier landscape that has multiple layers.
Oh, that makes sense then. But the environment felt so, as if it were going to blow up or something was going to happen. I always felt like, there's something that's roiling, that's going to bring us somewhere new. So
well, sometimes things need to rupture to change.
Yeah, and I think though what's wonderful about this work is that it does feel like there's a process of change, but it doesn't feel like annihilation. So for that, I'm grateful. It feels like there is a desire to see a way of seeing things anew, but yes, with new eyes. So that was my sense, my take on what you were doing today.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, Isabella. Look forward to the next.
Same.
Dara. Hi, Dara.
I'm here. Hi, Catherine. Nice to see you.
And nice to see you too. There you are.
Yes, can you see me?
I can.
Great.
So Dara and I have worked together for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Over many years. And this is...
I love to see you. Been on.
Uh-oh. I think that we might have a little video thing going on. Right
Can you hear me, Catherine?
I can hear you. I couldn't hear you a moment ago, but let's just see what happens here with our technology. So I just a note, and you may want to speak about this, about how you take traditional forms and you expand the boundaries of that form. Perhaps you should speak about that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that really speaks to the heart of our choreographic practice and my interest in blending different dance forms together. We've coined the term mod-Erin to describe our style. So modern dance principles, and then Erin, an Irish American reference to Ireland. And we're speaking on the panel so far about identity. And I think that coming from an Irish American perspective, there's a sense that my own identity is fused. I'm American, but I'm also of Irish ancestry. My husband's first generation Irish American, a lot of close family ties to Ireland. And I grew up training in multiple styles, training in Irish step dance, as well as ballet and modern dance. And so these different dance languages lived in my own body. And my interest over the past 20 years really has been in combining those languages into a body of work, and sort of drawing from the Irish dance, some of the structures, the percussive nature of it, the spatial patterning of social dances, ceilidhs and set dancing, the music, which is very cyclical or can be cyclical, and then adding in the modern dance elements, the arm and torso bending, the floor work, partnering in other ways. So that's how we try to combine both forms, or multiple forms.
And you are known to go to the ground.
Yes. Yes, we go down to the ground, floor work. Yes, exactly. One of those, when I think of modern dance, I'm referring not necessarily to one specific modern dance technique, but to some of those basic principles, floor work, using gravity, partnering, bending the torso. And so, yeah, going down to the floor, which one wouldn't see in Irish step dance, a very vertical format, is one way that we also play with the form and experiment with the form. That wasn't quite as obvious in what we showed today because of, some limitations in terms of concrete or brick or grass, but we did see it, in Laura's solo on the concrete there. She was really fusing floor work as well as using her hard shoe, like a point shoe, and doing some attitude turns on point. We saw a lot of the contemporary floor work in the very last solo in the big green landscape. Melissa Padam Moss going down to the floor, or the ground rather, and incorporating that into the solo.
Well, this work, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you started with the traditional dance on the East River. I think it was the East River, which I was happy to see, I have to say. And then extended the work, and you kept on pushing it and pushing it and pushing it away from the very traditional. And so the dancers moved in sneakers and also, as you say, the hard shoe, but used as a point shoe. And then the tapper at the end.
Yes. Yes. So trying to, it reminds me, Catherine, of the wonderful program you curated last year, all about the shoe at the 92nd Street Y, different ways of using the shoe. So Irish dance hard shoe as point shoe as tap shoe, ways to explore beyond the conventional shoe. So yeah, in what we showed today, I tried to arrange the film in kind of an arc, going from the more traditional Irish step dance movement to the more contemporary modern dance movement by the end, and interspersing with tap dance by Trent Kowalik, interlaced within there sneakers that Alexandra Williamson and Kendall Griffler were wearing, partially because, again, of the tennis court surface, but just also exploring how that changes the movement with the different footwear. And then we also tried to go from the very urban New York City backdrop into the very natural landscape to kind of show of this moment where all the company members are right now, in their various homes and living situations. So there were a few different arcs we were working with in the film, but footwear for sure was one of those through lines.
Yes, the dancer dancing, the long view of the dancer in nature, I think really expressed the moment for me, you know, what we're experiencing now. So it was elegiac. I had a feeling of hopefulness, but yet, you know, acknowledging that we're in different places, spaces, and still dancing. Here we are. So, Dara, thank you, my dear.
Still dancing and trying to find ways to still be. Thank you, Catherine, so much. And thank you for the genesis of this wonderful festival, and to John Scott and all of the organizers. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Pleasure to see you and your work, Dara. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, sorry. I've just got a baby on me here.
Is that all? Oh, so we get to see the baby. Oh,
wait a second. Hold on. Let me cover my modesty. Say hi. There you go. There she is.
Oh, will you introduce her, please?
This is little Ayala. Ayala Sarah.
Oh.
She made her appearance just 6 days ago.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, I had to move the camera. So there's me there. There she is.
Well, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks. Hi.
Welcome to you both. So obviously your work was acknowledging your pregnancy.
Yeah.
And what I found, you know, sort of really, I don't know, you know, life-giving is that you were dancing with your baby and connecting with your baby. And
yeah.
And of course, dancing positively impacts the fetus and the brain and the neuromotor activity. And I think that, and also influences the movement patterns of the baby as the baby grows. So this work for me was just so obviously life affirming away from that. But what I responded to most was when you were rubbing your belly with a substance.
Yeah.
And because one could feel your sensation inside and out. And I just am curious about how that sensation, but what it felt like to be dancing and sharing this with us.
Well, I think I was dancing and teaching and stuff before lockdown, and then lockdown happened and I got really bad pelvic girdle pain, and I couldn't do anything. Like I do yoga and I do stuff and I couldn't do anything. And this opportunity came up and I was like, God, I wonder if I could just make a wee dance and then make a video about this idea of being pregnant in lockdown and not having this. It was a battle between having this lovely nurturing experience and also having, I guess, waves of anxiety that come through all the time because you're not able to do stuff. So I wasn't able to get to physio or do things that would help the pelvic pain. And then so when I actually thought, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to make this dance. But actually, when I started dancing, it was fine. Like I would do yoga, aching. I'd go for a walk, aching. I would start dancing. And I'd be like, God, that's actually really good. So I really had a really good time making it. And when I was teaching like Zoom classes and stuff, when I was dancing, and I was like, that's crazy how, you know, you move more and you do so much more stuff when you're moving than just going for a walk or doing yoga, that I thought, God, this would be really painful. But the dancing actually was really fun and was really nice, and it was really nice and nurturing, and to, you know, really like embrace the bump and kind of copy. So I kind of like mirrored the movements that when she was kicking, and I kind of mirrored them in the movement material and stuff. And it was really like, I just loved it. I just loved dancing around my house.
Well, now you have to make another video with
her.
With her.
Yeah, let's just get her eyes open now. Say hi. Look. Say hi. Yep, she's going to be in the next one.
Good.
She's a star.
So, you know, what I also responded to was the beginning of the video where you're tracing your pregnancy, and then you turn over and you get up, and we really sense how you're what you're experiencing, how you're experiencing, and especially since you're inside in your rooms. I mean, it's a very private look at your life, obviously.
Catherine, Eileen.
Very intimate, yeah.
Sorry to jump in. I had to say something when I saw Alaya. Having seen her scan in the film and everything and talk to you, it's great to see her now. And I hope I'm not making her yawn.
No.
But also, I think it might also be interesting. I'd love to hear the perspective also from Conan, the filmmaker. And I'm wondering if Conan could step in as well into the chat. If Conan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey, Conan.
Hi. Hi, Eileen.
Thanks, John. I think John asked the question, Conan, what your perspective was as a filmmaker. What were you trying to capture?
Well, it's funny because Eileen's piece, I was also working with, previously I'd worked with Rad O'Neill and Chrysalis as the piece as well in the festival. And so Eileen's kind of directly followed on from that. And it was after having worked with Ryan and really wanting to continue this theme of making work with movement in lockdown. And there was obviously a kind of ticking clock of Eileen was due, I think overdue or due at that point. And so it was a very, we just kind of jumped into it. So a lot of the kind of figuring out what the form and the mode of storytelling would be, I had kind of figured out some of the language of that prior with Ryan. And so it was a much more straightforward process, and it was much more, I mean, it was much more, it was led by Eileen in terms of, I was just talking about the different aspects of what she was going through and how we would maybe in film. And also just allowing, and just trying to embrace just that kind of lyrical, personal storytelling.
Well, it was clear that you trusted one another.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
I mean, Eileen was very brave and open in terms of what she was prepared to show, and and so I think I mean it was actually remarkably straightforward, because we kind of, she would survey our house and I would kind of say, this could be an angle, we could set up something here with the door frame and the mirror or whatever, and we kind of set up what those shots could be and then Eileen would go and film something. I might kind of give her a note on it or something and film it again, but it was very, very straightforward, and it was the easiest film I've ever worked on. And so, I obviously wasn't even in the room, but so it was it was remarkably easy.
Well, beautiful. Eileen, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
thank you for introducing us. And
Bye.
Bye. And Conan, why don't you stay on, if you would, please,
Sure.
with Ryan.
Hello, Catherine. Hi, Conan.
Hello there.
Hi.
Chrysalis. Could you please speak about your collaboration?
Yes, so this was a response to the lockdown, and Maiden Voyage Dance, who are a commissioning company in Belfast, commissioned 8 associates of the company to make work in lockdown together but apart. So I decided to work with Conan. I was a big fan of his work and liked his aesthetic with things. And originally, I didn't have much of a concept of what I was going to do, and there were a lot of restrictions and boundaries in place due to the lockdown. And it just became this sense of an internal, external world. And I kind of originally wanted it to be about the rest period of the body, because I wasn't dancing as much. And what that means is an inside experience in comparison to a stimulus outside. But I didn't have the skills or means to do that. So it became more about a space that we inhabit, and a shared sense of this waiting game that we're going through. And yeah, it kind of began, I just started sending improvisations of movement to Conan back and forward, and capturing our day-to-day life, kind of inside and outside, bits of the sun coming in, shadow, just any kind of movements that we could capture. And we kind of sent stuff back and forward to each other and got Chrysalis, which was Conan's idea for the name. And I think it just kind of sums up this waiting period, this kind of transition that we're all in, time of reflection, a sense of passing thoughts, but not really catching on to anything that was kind of happening.
Well, it did, the dance really, or rather the video really captures that. Movement through whispers of thoughts. I mean, it's a very artful piece. I don't mean artful in a negative way, but really it's beautifully constructed. The landscape and the running water and the body in the water and navigating in the water and moving through the vegetation. It has a lot of strong feelings, strong movement, strong emotion. And Conan, it's really in contrast, it really contrasts the work with Eileen. I mean, Eileen's film was...
I think you got the wrong film, Catherine.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, that's Mary's one, that's next.
Oh, okay. That was bound to happen.
No worries.
Well, let me save this a bit. And Conan, why don't you speak about this dance? So, oh yeah, okay. Sorry about that, Ryan.
No worries.
So Mary, I'm going to save that for you. So Conan, why don't you speak then about the contrast of the two works?
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because at some point during the development period, working with Ryan, like we were just it was like trial and error of lots of different things. And I kind of realized, I mean, a lot of my work kind of goes back to, I mean, I kind of owe all my knowledge of dance basically to Maya Dern in terms of filmmaking and movement in film, and then alongside that, it kind of popped into my head about the whole kind of situation really reminded me of the Stan Brakhage film Cat's Cradle, and it was just that there's a real kind of domesticity about it, and like there's fragments of wallpaper and there's fragments of people and face and just expressions, and it's very kind of personal thing. And so once I realized that that we kind of made a rule then that for the most part that we would only just see Ryan as much as possible in reflections and shadows, in door frames, and in mirrors. That when it became less, then that started to introduce this kind of grounding it in the actual experience of the everyday living, and so that was very, very strong. And incidentally, then whenever I was thinking about Eileen's piece, I was thinking of Brackage's film Window Water Baby Moving, which is, if anybody's seen it, is quite an explicit film around childbirth, but similarly is a very personal kind of piece. And so I think to a certain extent that's represented in the aesthetics, and the grading, the color grading was quite significant in terms of being able to bring all the footage together. Because obviously we're shooting on camera phones, and not our traditional proper HD professional cameras, but more with Ryan's is more augmented with material shooting at home as well. But for the most part, Eileen's was almost all her in terms of what she was shooting. So Ryan's, I guess, there was maybe more me directly in it versus Eileen's, which was very much just letting. I mean, she was the only one that was going to really capture that experience. So that's the way that worked.
And Ryan, how does this film feel in your dance work as a whole? How does this fit in, or how is it different or the same?
I guess in terms of choreography, it's the first piece I've made. I'd be more just a performer in other people's works, so to kind of sit back and think about what I would like to do with a collaborator was the first experience I've had of that, so it was really great. And for me, it was also kind of a time to reflect on my skill set. Like, there was nothing to do, and as you were saying earlier, that dancers are quite resilient, and I wasn't so emotionally affected by the lockdown, thankfully, in comparison to other people. But yeah, it was just a kind of question of what can I do next, and it's a nice time to experiment and try something new, and yeah, just something I'd like to continue.
Yeah.
Catherine, also, we have Nicola Curry, the director of Maiden Voyage Dance here. Nicola, it was your idea to commission the film. Do you want to say something about what occasioned that?
Well, for us, it was in response to lockdown and not being able to continue our program as planned. And it allowed us to offer artists a chance to stay creative and try something new in working and making something for online viewing. So it's been a big learning curve for not just the artists who maybe haven't worked that way before, but also for us as a company.
Is this, so this is the first film that you?
This is the first of 8, Catherine. So there's 2 online at the minute, Chrysalis, and then another one by Maeve McGreevy. And the other 6 will be released later on in July.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah. A new way of working.
Yeah.
For both you and Ryan. That was very successful adventure for the 3 of you. So
thank you.
Thanks very much, Catherine.
Thanks much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary?
Hi, Catherine.
Well, you already heard me speak about your film. So I was very taken with Ryan and Conan's film too.
Yeah, me also. I had seen it previously also.
But I did feel that your work has a lot of thrust in it. It it has a lot of push and I don't know, this feeling of the goingness of it. Can you, and then, that beautiful ephemeral body that kind of, is referenced, but doesn't have the sense of push. It has a sense of just of statuesqueness maybe, or a willingness to be washed over. or to push. So I'm wondering what you were thinking in this dance, in this work.
Well, I think there's kind of, let me just, there were sort of two things that were coming together in the work. One was that in the last year, I've began to look back into my video archives. And just sort of digging into very early works or materials that I would have, gathered but not used in other works. And I sort of was really curious to look back into that. And so that has been kind of an ongoing process for the last year or so. And then simultaneously, I was working on a new piece at this point around COVID times, and that sort of got timelines on that all changed. So I was sort of in this place between kind of two worlds and two questions. And so I've sort of, I guess in both the new work, but also the kind of looking back into the archives, I've sort of, a lot of my work engages with nature and the environment, and I live very closely to nature and the environment. It's very important in my life and work. They intersect, and so I've had this question around this kind of relationship and correspondence between the human body and the environment, and it's really, there's this sort of pushing back and forth that I'm kind of really interested in, and finding ways to really look at that sort of correspondence or pushing. Sometimes we push into nature, and now nature is pushing right back, and how can we kind of negotiate that? And also in this one, I think, really now at the moment and in the last while, I really feel the power of the environment and the power of nature around us. And somehow it makes us very small as human beings. And so I think that's also perhaps what you've just picked up on in the work, Catherine, is that kind of, just that sense of we are not all powerful as human beings, and just being able to kind of meet nature in some way and let it take us down.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's now that we're in COVID and of course the Black Lives Matter movement, in the thrust of all of this, we forget about climate change. And, when you say that nature makes us so small, it does, and yet, our impact is so overwhelming on the planet. So it's good to be reminded that we're small. So maybe we take that into account in the larger context. Yeah.
And, and equally, I'm always, we have, I think, I don't know, we also have a great capacity to kind of listen and engage and meet things. And I think now more than ever, I'm really kind of, interested in this question of meeting things and correspondence, and how through that meeting, things can kind of open up in another way, and maybe less of the kind of pushing and falling and collapsing, but, going forward in another way. Mm-hmm. So that comes into the work, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm curious to see what you do next.
Thanks, Catherine.
I wonder if it will be virtual again.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, I inhabit that space in my work, in terms of the digital side, but also in the live context. So it's really trying to navigate what it means to bring those together is always a really interesting question, and now one that's also very topical.
Indeed, yes. Well, thank you so much, Mary.
Thanks, Catherine. Lovely to meet you.
And you. Fiona?
Hi.
Hey there.
Denise. Hello. Hi, Catherine. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. So this, your work, Heron, I'm curious to know, where did you see the dancer who's so beautifully long with that gorgeous hair and think, oh, she's very bird-like? Or did you, what is the genesis of the work?
That's a very interesting question, actually, because the genesis of the work was me studying the heron for a year.
Maybe that's not so interesting on my part, but wow.
Why not? Why would it not be interesting?
Oh, I don't know. It's interesting to know about the heron. That's for certain.
Yeah. So it was part of a large work, which was called Paper Pylons, which was performed, a duet, on a journey retracing my father's steps.
Oh, really? From where?
Down to the Ardna Crusher scheme down in Limerick, the hydroelectric scheme. So he had worked there as a young man, and I started, I went and I kind of followed his footsteps. So, and on that journey, I was observing the wildlife along the river. And gradually later on, I brought this with me when I came back to Dublin, and I was writing the work. At that point, I was writing a long kind of text for him. And I was sitting at the river edge, and there was the heron sitting, looking at me. So I'd just write a bit, and then I'd look at the movement, and then I'd write a bit more. And gradually we kind of started communing together. So I kind of watched every tiny movement, every articulated movement. And then I was in the studio. I had started working on the dance work, Paper Pylon, with the text and with a lovely dancer, Alwyn Grindley, and it was a duet. And I spied in the window of the studio a beautiful girl who had just arrived from Sweden, and her name was Maria Nielsen Waller. And I just caught the sight of her arms and wrists. And I was about 2 seconds where I put my head through the door and said, hey, will you come in to the studio? Because I want to explore heron. And the text I wrote was called, let me see, Heron Man and I.
And Fiona, Catherine, we also have Maria here, who dances so beautifully.
Yes.
Hi, Maria.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Maria.
Maria? Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Hi, everyone.
So, Maria, how did the two of you explore this, the observations of Fiona?
Well, Fiona, as you said, Fiona spotted me. She invited me in to work with her in the studio. I suppose it's one of the first jobs I did in Ireland when arriving 10 years ago. And actually, I had never seen a heron at the time. So, but it really was Fiona, dancing it kind of physically, explaining it, showing it somehow, kind of based on memory and improvisation, as far as I can tell. And then me trying to embody her quality, actually. So it's very much movement transferred from her body to my body somehow. And then, trying to somehow make sense of it, even though physically we're quite different, I would say.
Did you think about Makarova and Swan Lake or Asadata?
No, not at that time, no.
Because when you're on one leg and your hair is over and your scapula are moving, you really do capture the sense the inner sensibility of a long-legged avian creature.
Well, thanks, I suppose. No, that's all, Fiona.
It's not me. I don't have long arms like that, but I do love to work very deeply into an articulation of arms and legs. And just on the point of the hair, I had actually I started researching the life of the heron. And what I found was, to my absolute amazement, was that their feathers keep growing. So the feathers keep growing and growing and growing. And their only way of controlling this is by kind of paring them off.
I'll be darned.
So I had watched this. They pair it off with their feet, and they crew cut themselves. And then as we came to that section with Maria, I said, lift your foot over the bar and drop your head over. And I said to her, now I want you to use your foot through the hair. And that was just, I think Maria will probably remember all of the different moments. Each day I came in and said, look, this is what I want. But Maria's very open to exploring, an accentuated movement and a feeling for nature. Maria's very interested in nature, as I am myself. I kind of constantly out drawing, listening to the wildlife, and actually most of my work is really about nature in many ways.
Well, clearly, it was the contrast of the hair and the limbs in the studio in black and white. It was very striking. All of it had such a sculptural quality.
Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you. That was 3 minutes.
5. Ingrid.
Hello, Catherine. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So you took on the United States.
I did, rather, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty brave, really, to, of course, the United States could use a little takedown.
Well, the thing is, the film was made 5 years ago, and the impetus for it initially was immigration, refugees. And it was originally a live dance work. And the strange thing is, I'm just thinking in the last few days, when we turned it into a film, that aspect of it got diluted out, I think, a little bit. And I was able to focus, even though the script was exactly the same for the live performance as for the film. But the other topics like celebrity culture, pornography, the Iraq War, child beauty pageants, for some reason, when I was looking at the film again, it just seemed to hit me more. But the original thing is because my husband and I, we lived in Canada in the 80s. And we didn't know if we were going to have to sort of stay there for forever. And that's what got me thinking. And of course, I come from a background that is sort of non-Irish, even though I was born here. So there was loads of strands. And my daughter now lives in New York. So,
well, the work is very current. I mean, the fact that you talk about Martin Luther King, I Had a Dream, and the right to bear arms. There's, I mean, it's a very dystopian view of America, and obviously that's what we're living right now.
But the funny thing is, when I made it, I actually adore the States. Like there's so much there that I really enjoy. And, you know, they gave me the first opportunity to perform. I never felt at the receiving end of sexism or ageism. And I always got the feeling when I got off the plane, it was very odd, thing to do now, is that I was going to live forever. I just, I just pick up with that feeling in the States and just run with it. And when I come back, and then so exhausted because it's just so hard to stop. You just want to keep going, take everything in, enjoy everything, experience everything. But yes, there is the other side to it, which is unfortunate. But I mean, every country has that. It's not just the States. Every country has the dark side and the not so good side.
I found there was a contrast between talking about New York City and the 6th train, et cetera. Yeah. And then being out west and talking about the Western United States. I think it was at that point right to bear arms, perhaps. But obviously most of it is filmed in the West.
Well, it was filmed in Matera in the south of Italy. Because we went there, my first...
Western Italy?
Yeah, I've made 3 films, and the first and the third one, well, the first one, it was raining continually for the first day that we shot. We only had 1 day. Second day, I thought we will go to Matera for 3 days. And halfway through the first day, we went for the light, the sun. There was torrential rain from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which just washed out the whole day. So we had 1 day to do about 20 scenes on the following day. And my cinematographers, I asked him about 10 o'clock on the second day, did you think we were going to make it? And he said no. And I said no as well, because if we were really up against it. But it was like a Hollywood loss, because we originally had chosen somewhere else. And then when Luca Trufarelli, my cinematographer, got there a few days before me, there was a whole thing about that we had to pay and, not officially. And it just got so complicated. We thought, okay, let's leave it. So Luca found this quarry for its next door to the official one. And it was like a Hollywood lot. There was, I found a fig tree when I had a headache halfway through the first morning. And I sat on a chair and looked down, and there was a fig. So I thought, okay, I was talking about Dominique Strauss-Kahn, so let's use the fig. Then we had, there was a tree upside down on top of a rock and loads of grass everywhere. So it was like having, 6 locations in one, which was great. Very enjoyable, yeah.
Well, the work is cinematic, no question. I mean, it really does have that feeling of the movie set, Hollywood.
Okay. But it's funny because you see, my first 2 works were live works. I feel that only in my third work, which was not a live work first, that came to me in shots, scene by scene by scene. So it was quite difficult with the first 2 films because you already had the live work to then make it kind of cinematographically work, if you know what I mean.
I do. Yeah. Well, Ingrid, it's been such a pleasure to speak with you. So
lovely to meet you, Catherine. Thank you.
You too.
Stay well.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Now I think Muftau is next.
Hi, Catherine.
Oh, hi, Muftau. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? Good to see you again.
Great to see you too. So tell us about this dance. It has, the poetry that you wrote seems to be calling out for, expressing, you talk about barrenness and the flesh becomes cinders, cry for freedom, anonymous whispers, waves of uneasiness. So all of these feelings of the need to express and a feeling of despair, perhaps. Maybe you'd like to speak more about the writing and then the...
Yeah, absolutely. I think the writing came about as because initially I just thought it was enough to just do the video and to make like a video dance without text. But then I felt like the text would just add another depth to it somehow. That it was not just an aesthetic dance film, but somehow there was, I think I was just afraid to be misunderstood with just the video and the dance. So I kind of wanted to put the text to say, to kind of elaborate what I really wanted to portray. And the text kind of, it was the very last minute. I think I had to write it really fast. And then what came out was a need to, because initially the film started as in response to the COVID-19 and the lockdown and everything. But then now with the whole Black Lives Matter movements and the protests happening globally, I kind of felt I needed to kind of put that in as well. And so somehow the text or the poem, in a way, it's supposed to embody the feeling of confinement in different ways. So the physical confinement, emotional confinement, the confinement of a single narrative, which I think a lot of people are subjected to as victims of racism or discrimination. And so, yeah.
And can you talk about well, you used drums and the sax?
Yeah. I started, I think just 2 weeks before we actually finished the film, I was using John Coltrane's music called Visual. And I think that music was just, it had such a strong impact on me, and I knew I had to use it. But I was so late with asking permission for the music rights. So basically last minute, in 2 weeks, we had to come up with something, find some royalty-free music online and put things together, ask permission from these people and try to recreate the same feeling of dread and, I don't know, isolation and yeah.
Well, I think that, oh, go ahead, forgive me.
No, I don't really know how to finish it, but yeah, I think that's how it came about. So it was a substitute for John Coltrane's music, which was the better off.
This was very effective. I thought that it worked beautifully.
Yeah.
You also speak about the gestures that you used, with your hands and across your mouth and the use of your arms. They seem to really speak the text.
Yeah, I think I didn't intend to, actually. I think it just came out naturally as a intuitive response to it. I think I'm so used to also as a dance. I think I use my hand quite a lot, actually. So, but I really wanted to capture the feeling of this frantic energy to be unsettled somehow. And sometimes I would also not move a lot, but there would be a lot of internal movements, and then the camera would come up close, and then you could see like somebody's waiting or is quite agitated. And I wanted to capture all this and put onto it.
Well, I think you did.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Great to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Now I think we have Megan and Jessica Kennedy from Junk Ensemble.
Hi. Hiya.
Their gorgeous film Fallow Table.
Indeed, yes. So Jessica and Megan?
Yes, hi.
Well, first of all, perhaps I'm not the only one who's curious, but are you twins?
Yes, we are.
And,
you can tell in silhouette.
Yeah, well, I could say which one I think is older, but okay, I'll skip that. So obviously you dance in unison, and you have this this mirror connection in the work that is really uncanny. I mean, the way that you put on your shoes and the way you put on your jacket and your ties, and you measure the railing with your bodies. You're very much, have this in sync, synchronized sensibility. And I'm wondering if you know, when you start to choreograph, is that where you go to first, or how did the two of you work as a duet?
I think it's particularly different with this film because it was made under restrictions. So by the time we filmed it, the restrictions had eased a lot, but at the time, like we were completely quarantined from each other. So the original premise was that we would be 1 or 2 meters apart, and because we couldn't have contact, that we would do more unison. And that really harkened back to a lot of our previous work. So the origins of our company and us starting to work together, we did a lot of unison work. You know, we were just starting out as choreographers, and we were doing a lot of duet work around identity, really, and even around being twins, and then transgressed into much further avenues. But I think in some ways the film was an homage to all the work that we've done in the past. Like, it really reminds us of one of our really early works, The Rain Party, and then the Drinking Dust, which we used an image from, and then 5 Ways to Drown. So it was really nice to move through it, and it all began from the restrictions that were originally imposed on us.
Mm-hmm. And sister,
yeah, agreed. And we were looking back at, I suppose, also our lives and our past work, and what has happened amongst that in that time, and that's how we came to the title, in fact, Fallow Table, because at this stage we see this as this sort of fallow period where we're letting things rest and regenerating ourselves, and as the soil is left to rest and regenerate and kind of recuperate from past events. That's how we saw this as a sort of almost a burying of what's happened before, and then a renewal or an awakening of ourselves and also of our work. And I think that that sort of almost deadpan, but that straight out to the camera, this sort of just sort of facing it head on and keeping this small separation between us is how we wanted to approach the gaze, I suppose, for the film.
And is the photograph of the woman in white an antecedent of yours? Or?
Yeah, that's me. So this is also a sort of burying of oneself, and the idea of this duality of I'm there but Megan's not, and so this sort of missing person, and that is from another work that we did, Drinking Dust. So that's me dressed in a dress of my mother's, actually, a long Victorian dress. And so there was 2 people in the original photo, myself and Jess. I was dressed as a man and she was dressed as a woman, and we were really going into the sort of 18th century look for the piece. And then when we were approaching the idea of Fallow Table, we thought that it was like this idea of this other self. So we thought of this other self from histories ago, so an ancient person that sort of dug up and then reburied, and you're not sure, you know, when you unearth them, what they're going to be like, and they sort of are renewed in some way. So we thought back to that period of Drinking Dust, and in the hanging image which is me, I'm wearing that dress, so luckily we still had that dress. And of course, like all of these things, like costume and, you know, sound and props, in these circumstances, you're like digging in your attic and just trying to find whatever you can in order to make the work. And the party at the end was, I suppose, a celebration of these things or these people that we've lost, but also a looking towards what's to come.
The razor, you use razor wire at the end, and you're dressed as little girls. Is that, am I getting that right?
Well, we're wearing party dresses and there's balloons. It's in a car park.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, there's barbed wire behind.
There is,
in the car park. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of grim setting, but also beautiful. It's the CIE Insecure works in the railway works. And so it's just an abandoned car park.
So we did think that the antithesis of that would be to hang streamers on the barbed wire and have these balloons. So it's like quite a very surreal, juxtaposed situation where you've got the barren urban lifestyle, very, very sparse, and then this idea of a celebration or a party or a wake, as we saw it in some ways.
Well, it is an arresting work. I mean, really quite stunning. Thank you so much for bringing it today.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Catherine.
Your next work. Nice to meet you too.
Bye, everyone.
Anya.
Hello. Is it working?
It is.
Very good. Nice to meet you, Catherine. I don't think we've met before, but
we haven't. But you know, I saw an excerpt of your dance.
Oh,
for the I'm on this committee called the Bessies in New York City, and your dance we shared it with everyone. So an excerpt of this new work.
Wow! Thank you.
I was very pleased to see it again.
Oh.
Although I only saw you when you were inside in your brown dress. I mean, that was the only section that I saw earlier.
Oh, which piece was this then? Was it Medicated Milk or was it Horrible Creature?
I don't know. Maybe maybe I'll.
Anyway, sorry. Okay. Sounds good. Anyway, thank you.
So I don't want to give anything away because we're going to watch your film now.
It's nearly finished.
And
I'm getting your messages all the time.
Oh. Hey, John.
I love this. I love that when that happens.
I can't see you anymore, but
when you're following, maybe you'd like to just give us a little introduction, but not give too much away.
Yeah, that makes sense. I won't go on for too long either. So as an introduction, I suppose this is the second work that I've made about Lucia Joyce. Hopefully one of 4 planned so far. It's getting longer. And because there's so much in Lucia's story and history, I've kind of divided each piece into different sections of her timeline. So this work looks at her life between 1915, when the family first moved from Italy to Switzerland during World War I, up until around 1950, after she's been moved to a psychiatric hospital in England. So it's filmed at different locations where she spent time in Switzerland. So her old psychiatric hospital, her old primary school, a monastery in the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, and basically every location is somewhere where she spent time, which was important to me to do it that way as well. And then the 3 amazing dancers, Michelle Boulay, who I'm sure you know from New York, Sarah Ryan from Ireland, and Celine Larrière from France, are all following a choreographic script or score that's built on Lucia's own words and different things about her history, and then the voiceover is separate to that text that they're following, that they're embodying. The voiceover is separate to that. Yes.
It's a very ambitious work. I mean, the fact that we travel with you to these locations, and as well, we really are allowed to inhabit her psyche and to move through her world with her is quite a journey.
Yeah, it felt amazing to, like, the whole the way of working, like to go to the locations and find them and investigate. And then of course, Lucia's writings are can be very difficult to access as well. And yeah, I just tried to gather as much as possible about her and from her own kind of embodied experiences. And or from what I can tell about them. And yeah, try and, as you said, hopefully take people on a journey closer to hopefully what she was, rather than these kind of cliche ideas that are thrown about her a lot. So yeah,
it's you know, movement really allows us to go to places that we can't otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And Lucia herself was a dancer, so that's also ties everything together. That was her passion, apparently. So yeah.
Well, thank you. So
thank you.
We'll look at your film now. With,
brilliant. Lovely. Make a tea, make a wine. Prepare to sit down for a while. Yeah, it's about, I think it's just over an hour, but it'll fly by. Yeah. Hopefully. Well, the performers are all fantastic and the locations are beautiful. So enjoy.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya, and thank you, Catherine. So now, basically, because Horrible Creature is a special feature-length film, we were going to do, as we have done the Talkback, after the other dances and before Horrible Creature. And I don't know, Catherine, do you have any other questions, or if any of the other choreographers want to come back in for a minute and just talk generally for a couple of minutes about any commonalities or anything else? And maybe, Catherine, what you think you see now, having asked me that question in 2017 about Irish dance, and having seen the festival last year and the work this week and tonight in particular, do you have anything else to ask or say about that?
I think I do, but before I do, may I just mention a couple of notes about Chrysalis? Since
Absolutely.
You know, I was actually very taken with that work. The beautiful cuts between the images, the receding light, the washing at the sink, the fly rubbing its legs, and the dancers, the way light and shadow are intersected and played with. I mean, I thought it was really a gorgeous work. So I wanted to make sure that I said that. Since
yeah, no, it is, it's very special.
So, you know, the works that I saw today, many of them, well, some were inside, interior views of lives, and others were outside in nature. And, you know, what struck me was that the artists went to the places that really spoke to them, that they found, I think anyway, close to heart, or their environment seems very important right now, especially for the newest works. And yeah, and I think that all of these works had a sense of the personal. I mean, obviously, I mean, all dance does, but not all dance expresses that. I mean, that's for sure.
I'm kind of fascinated, and I don't know, any of the rest of you, if you want to say something about this and come back on and unmute yourselves, but we planned this festival. It was going to be a live festival in the theater like last year, and then all these things happened and we thought, what are we going to do? And then in conversations with all the choreographers, they wanted to make work. And when I performed in the La Mama, Cafe La Mama piece in April, through my laptop screen, and I realized it's almost like a different medium. It's not film, it's something else. And then tonight is kind of film, but it's filmed by people. Some of them are definite films, like Horrible Creature, like Freedom to Go, and they're really films. And everything else has been kind of, a lot of the other work has its roots in live performance and in theater. And we're all finding new things new ways to work in this situation. And I know we're cursing our reality and all the things we can't do, and all the gigs that have been cancelled, but there is the necessity is maybe we're finding new ways to reinvent, and we haven't cracked it yet, but we're getting our feet wet and we're trying something else. I don't know if everyone else feels the same or wants to say anything. How you, Catherine, feel as kind of the observer, having been so close to the festival and everything, and then seeing all this work. And who'd have known a year ago that we'd be locked in our houses looking at things through our computers and living our life this way?
Well, you know, I have to say that I really am impressed with the way that dancers, choreographers are able to take a live medium and yet make it so performative in a celluloid, I guess it's not celluloid anymore, digital medium. You know, I think that artists are artists, no matter where they are and what they're doing. And I think that's what I've learned.
Definitely.
Because you would think that a live, you know, that dance where we're so used to touching one another and sweating and feeling each other's skin and, you know, and feeling our feet along the floor, etc., that there would be no other place to dance. There would be no, it felt that way to me. And yet choreographers are finding ways of bringing those aspects of live performance to the viewer. So I think dance is irrevocably changed henceforth.
Yeah. Well, I was taking a Cunningham class with Ashley Shen today in my living room. I was doing a workshop yesterday with Faye Driscoll in my kitchen.
How fun.
And with everybody else in their various rooms. And it was wonderful. It was not the same thing as being in the studio, but it was exciting. We were connecting and maybe in some ways being more intimate because the way the situation has us. And it's been very exciting. Toby, Mufta, Megan, Jessica, anyone else? Do you have anything else to say, Ingrid, about
John,
this? Mary.
Sorry, go ahead, Mary.
I just wanted to say, John, that actually what was interesting about making this work specifically for you for the festival was that it became something that it's like it feels very different to maybe a project that might have been made in another context, because it's almost like an inquiry that dropped out of the wide artistic practice, as opposed to being a specific project, you know, being delivered in a particular kind of way. So I really enjoyed that it's sort of like these questions that drop out of the wider artistic practice as a dance artist. And that felt quite different to sort of delivering, you know, a project that we might be doing, like project funding that I know we had an exchange about. So I just wanted to say that it's really the opportunity to make from questions that are stimulated from what we think about as artistic practice in dance, and what is that, and how can the works get made from that. So I felt that.
Yeah.
So thanks, John, for the opportunity to make that in this context for the festival. It's great.
Thank you. Ingrid, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think this kind of emergency this opportunity now has kind of given us an enhancement, a kind of something to add to our normal live performance. Like, I hope at some point we will go back into a theatre, have the live performances, meet with people, work with people very closely. But I think this strand of it will probably survive in some form, because you say that there's loads of experiences that we never would have had, like Faye Driscoll from LA in your kitchen, and Ashley from Paris, and whatever. So in a way, I'd hate to have it all through the screen, but it's just nice to have that as an extra bit, as an adjunct to the live performance. I mean, obviously we're human, you know, it's not just an economy, it's a society, we need people. But this, I think, unexpectedly has given us, I don't know, a way out of it in a way, just an escape route, because we don't know when we get back. Could be a year, could be 6 months, could be 2 years. I don't want to think that far ahead, but I think this is too precious in some way just to throw away when we get back to the whatever the normal is at some point.
Yeah, I read this this interview with this woman who had predicted a pandemic years ago, and she was a consultant on the film pandemic. Garrett, I think, is her second name. She's really, really brainy, and she said, there's no going back. Like after 9/11, we didn't go back. We have to go forward, take in the changes in society. Like now the days when you went to the airport and you went through a metal detector, or you went into a building and you had ID and didn't bring a knife out with you or something metal. And we, I don't know, we just go forward, we've forgotten. So something else is going to happen in how we go forward, even after they find eventually a cure.
Yes. And also I think this has found sort of new audiences. Like I was involved in the Brooklyn Film Festival, which normally would have, I don't know, a few hundred people. And it went online and they had 39,000 views. Yeah. So, and also there was always a rule in film festivals, if your film was online, that's it, you know, you can't then have it appear in the theater. So I think that rule is going to go out the window.
Yeah.
And it'll just open it up to loads of people, you know, say who can't travel to a festival, not because of COVID, but because maybe of money or whatever circumstances. So this is probably here to stay, but I hope we still get the human bit, the normal bit. What was the normal bit back?
Okay. Well, thank you, and thank everyone. And Catherine, thank you for coming in and for your beautiful, deep insights. The way you look inside, you're like a surgeon or something. The way you look at the work, you see something, and you seem to see the precious essence, that kind of thing that we can't define when we make our dances. You can put your finger right on it. It's extraordinary.
Oh, thank you, John. But the work is extraordinary too, so makes it easy. Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure. And now I think we're now going to look at Anya's beautiful film, Horrible Creature. Just before we go to Horrible Creature, thank you everyone, all the choreographers tonight and the team, and Chris and Conleth operating all the technology here. And tomorrow we have a class at 10 a.m. Irish time. That's 5 a.m. New York time if you want to tune in, Dara or Catherine, with Cheryl Tharin of the Conservatoire in Paris and of Merce Cunningham Company. And Cheryl is teaching a beautiful class 10 to 11:30. And Rachel Shield is teaching an introductory hip hop class later in the day from Limerick. And then we have a program about Merce Cunningham and his Irish connection and our work with Merce Cunningham and the Cunningham Trust, followed by a Ceilidh, which is curated by Liam O'Sconlawn, who we saw dancing the other night. And Liam and Siobhan O'Malley will introduce the Ceilidh, and it's really, really going to be beautiful. So stay now for Horrible Creature by Anya Stapleton. And then we see you tomorrow for class, workshops, and for Merce Cunningham and a Ceilidh. So thank you, everyone. And many, many thanks. And good night, Ihawa. And stay well. Love you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Could you write down what you remember?